just a minute ago, the sun was coming through and I had this laser-like bright line of light across my face, but it's gone now. I don't know if it'll come back.
Tomorrow. Either slightly be earlier or late, probably later. Well, no, it'll probably be a little bit later.
The sun will come back, Rick. That's what you're worried about.
It's out. It's just weird. It was like, for a moment, it was just a line.
Boy, guys, I'm really not prepared today. I didn't even print my notes. Oh, my.
Kill a tree for podcasting?
I don't think there's a tree's worth of paper that I'm using for this note.
A very small baby tree. That's what they use just for single sheets.
I'm offsetting it because podcasting helps the environment.
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing negative environmentally about podcasting. It's all positive.
It's all a plus.
All plus. Hold on. Oh, Jesus. I'm a mess today, guys.
I'm not even sure that's Chris.
Rick was making a comment about my glasses, I think. I don't know if you guys know this, but Big Eyeglass owns about 98%
Oh, yeah.
of all the eyeglasses. So I bought these at a place that only sells from the 2%.
Right.
Or the 1%. Maybe these are 1% glasses.
Was it a tent in a parking lot? One of those things? Like those books, those temporary bookstores? I never understood those.
Temporary bookstore.
Like a strip mall, there'd just be a book shop, a sale for like a few weeks. There were never any books you wanted to buy. That was a long time ago. Books, I don't know.
Books. Back in the book era.
Like,
here comes the laser. Do you see it?
Oh, yeah. Look at that.
It was
The sun, it's come back for you, Rick. That's weird, because usually the sun only goes in one direction. It reversed direction.
It's just setting, and then it hits this kind of like stained glass or beveled glass.
Like the glass in Psycho. The one thing I learned from watching the shot-for-shot remake of Psycho, that brilliant shot where Norman Bates runs up the hill and comes into the house, and he opens the door, which has prismed glass in the door.
Wow.
And when he opens it and he walks through it, there's multiple versions of him in the prismed glass, thus creating like I don't know if you ever saw the cover of the book Sybil. I've never read the book Sybil, but all of my relatives did. And it had like prismed pictures of Sybil because it was someone with a multiple personality disorder.
And so what you mean by all your relatives, you mean all the people that live inside you, Chris?
Yeah, you want to meet one of them right now? Hello, Governor. I wish I just had I wish I had a host of voices I could have just whipped out like Robin Williams.
You'll be happy to know, Chris, that because of your influence, your nefarious influence, I watched a 6-hour John Wayne Gacy documentary last week.
I know. I was hoping we'd get into that.
All right.
Because I watched a similar documentary, and I thought we could compare notes.
All right.
Are you not going to go over that in your things I've watched this week segment?
Oh, I will. I can.
I figured we'd save it for that.
Yeah, we can.
There's a teaser for all you just tuning in right now. You should keep it tuned in. Don't touch that dial.
Don't touch that dial.
Welcome to Lost and Found and Rewound, a podcast I edit so aggressively that at its best, it sounds like the dialogue from Gilmore Girls, and at its worst, it sounds like glitchy robots on cocaine. I'm Chris Lost.
I'm Found Jim.
And I'm Rick Rewound. That's for the editor.
I'll tell you. And all of you who heard Rick just blast through his name almost awkwardly, I apologize. I don't know what kind of cocaine he's on.
You're the power that you hold as an editor. I don't like it.
I've never done anybody wrong with my editing, I don't think. I cut mostly my stuff, and then I, make you guys sound better by cutting all the large pauses as you're trying to remember what Shirley MacLaine movie.
Yeah.
Well, I hope everyone's having a great Pride Month. I'm proud of the fact that we don't need to add a rainbow to our logo.
I know. I noticed that. I was like, wow.
Thank you for that foresight, Rick.
Yeah.
So many people in my family, my close friends, my coworkers, people who I love dearly that identify as members of the LGBTQ community. It's great that we get this month to celebrate that community and our place in that community. I think I speak for us all when I say we are proud to be proud. This podcast is timeless, so all months are Pride months.
That's right.
How are you guys?
Excellent.
I'm okay.
I should be bad, right?
Yeah, are you bad?
I couldn't be better.
Really?
Got new glasses, a new haircut.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a new Chris.
Mm-hmm.
Chris not so lost. No, wait, are you Chris found? Wait, no, you're Chris.
I'm Chris Lost. Jim has found Jim. And you are Rick Rewound.
Got it.
I did have an observation. We are the least incognito podcast there is. I know this because the count of interactions on our personal social media accounts greatly outweighs the number of interactions we get on our podcast pages. So no one goes to the Lost and Found and Rewound pages to say anything. But I have noticed a lot of comments on our personal pages about the podcast. Somebody had sent Rick the Fresh Air
Oh, right. Yeah.
on The Crown.
Mm-hmm.
I'm assuming you listened to that and then watched The Crown.
I haven't yet. I haven't. I did watch the episode you recommended.
Oh, what did you think of it?
Oh, I loved it. I love that era of England where Margaret Thatcher began dismantling any semblance of human decency in government, along with Ronald Reagan. So I love seeing a direct sort of reference to that era. And then the music.
So you love that she dismantled decency in government? I'm not tracking that statement.
I just like the fact that retroactively we are now acknowledging everything that I saw and most everyone else who, wasn't blinded by Thatcherism and Reaganism of how destructive and awful that era was, which I feel like we're just ending. That era is just ending. And that was the beginning.
Yeah, it's completely over now, which is great.
I don't know about that, but I feel hopeful that we're going to enter in a new era.
By a new era, you mean the final era of our lives?
Maybe for us, I don't know. Yeah, but one that isn't Reagan or Thatcher centric.
I hope we learned something from all the selfishness.
Oh, I hope so. Yes, we shall see. Because people usually do. Selfish people usually learn.
I learned. I used to be a very selfish, misanthropic, egotistical, narcissistic asshole. And I've gotten bearable. You guys hang out with me now, so
Yeah, virtually.
I improved. We're in the last quarter of our lives and the last quarter of this podcast. These are the last 3 films in the 12-film set.
And it seems like just yesterday that we started doing it,
I was going to say it seems like years.
I had a hot seat question for us, speaking of the latter parts of our lives. In the film that, we'll talk about, the film we're going to announce, the lead character tells another character that if they want to speak to their dead family, they can just talk to any tombstone because everybody all ends up in the same place. So I wanted to ask you guys, when we all die, are we going to end up in the same place? Jim, what do you think?
Yes, absolutely.
If that place is the ground.
Well, not everybody ends up in the ground, Rick.
You're talking about people who die in an airplane? Like when you're on a flight from like New York to LA and then there's a strange kind of hubbub going on in first class and you don't realize what's happened until a sort of stretcher arrives at the gate and you realize that someone's passed away. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, but those people end up in the ground. Some of them do. But I mean, some people are cast to the wind, right? You could be cremated and cast to the wind. I guess you end up in the ground that way too.
Some people's ashes go into space. You can do that.
There. You can launch your ashes into space?
That's a small amount. You can't get your full ashed body into space, I don't think, but you can. I think there are ways to get small amounts.
Mm-hmm.
Is there not enough space in space for everybody's ashes?
Space is at a premium.
Yeah. It's the
Not in space, but just the ship to get.
Getting to it,
Yeah.
The payload.
Oh, they don't just launch it in like a cannon?
think
Shoot
so.
it in space?
No, not in a space cannon. I'll Journey to the Moon.
That's an old thing, old idea. Yeah, they're like, I don't know if they're gravity guns, rail guns, or like just
Yeah.
shooting things on some kind of mag. Yeah, if you shoot something out of a gun fast enough, it'll go into orbit. But you obviously couldn't do it with people. That idea's been around a long time. Rockets start up really slow, you just build up momentum. But these rail gun idea, it just like goes, whoosh, it's like the super fast slingshot effect or something. And you could just fling things out. If you could do it fast enough, it would go out. It'd just be like launching it into orbit.
So you wouldn't shoot straight up, though. You'd have to shoot at an angle, so it'd kind of get in the lane. It's
I
kinda
think
like
that's
an
the
on-ramp.
idea. Yeah, like so you could build a long track or something that kind of goes up, but it's all crazy theoretical stuff, which would never work with people because you'd be squished. It'd be crazy acceleration. But I think it was an early idea before rockets had all these ideas.
I watched a video on fighter pilots training for 9Gs, and it's just them straining. Like you have to constantly kind of like do a kind of squeeze to just keep yourself from blacking out. And so it just looks like they kind of look like weightlifters. They just kind of pulsate. They make this kind of like squeezy, squatty, kind of like straining on the toilet like gesture, and they just keep doing it to keep their brains from freezing up and blacking out.
Blood going to your feet.
Yeah.
They use those. Yeah, they have those.
Wait, so there's no device? There's not like in Moonraker, there's not like a thing that spins you around, like a particle accelerator that you get in and somebody sets on too fast and you have to use your gun watch to blow open the control panel of it?
I'm sure that's happened.
Yeah.
But
Moonraker's real.
Could be somebody's vision of the future.
Jeff Bezos is probably, or Elon Musk, whose idea of space is closer to Moonraker. Probably Elon Musk is more Moonraker. Jeff Bezos is more Space 1999, maybe.
Or what about the Andy Griffith show where they went up in space just to collect garbage and bring it back down?
You mean not the Andy Griffith show, like an episode, a very special episode of the Andy Griffith show. You're talking about, what was it called? Garbage One? What was it called? I actually did a little internet research on that show a while ago. Salvage One. That's what it was called. Mm-hmm. That was great. Better than I would argue that Far Out Space Nuts kind of tackled the same topic.
Gilligan, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I combined those two. I was like, wait, wasn't Gilligan in Salvage? Okay, so they're two different things.
I said lunch, not launch.
Classic.
I can't believe that I, off the top of my head, pulled out that Andy Griffith Space Show, and you guys topped it with a space salvage show that I hadn't seen.
Not me, Rick.
To be fair, they were janitors. They were NASA janitors, and they were cleaning the rocket. And then Bob Denver acts like, what's his name? I can't remember the other character actor who was in Far Out Space Nuts. He says, it's time for lunch. And then Bob Denver goes, there's a button. Oh, and he says lunch. And then he pushes the big red button that says launch. And then they wind up launching the rocket into space and have adventures.
That's a stretch. Why would it be that easy to make that mistake?
I believe a Sid and Marty Krofft production.
Oh, well, then I believe it.
Because there was some kind of alien like puppet or person in a costume, I believe, but I could be wrong. It's kind of in between the super serious Land of the Lost and then the super fantasy of H.R. Puffin stuff. Or perhaps Lidsville.
I haven't seen Lidsville. I've seen the rest of those. Land of the Lost was like my favorite show as a kid.
I was scarred permanently by Lidsville. Lidsville was a little too far into the sort of Alice in Wonderland direction. Charles Nelson Riley is the bad guy in Lidsville. He said, so the kid falls into a magician's hat and winds up in a H.R. Puffin stuff-like world, except it's people who are giant hats instead of strange sea monsters and stuff like that. Or no, that's Sigmund and the Sea Monster. I'm getting them all confused, but Lidsville, definitely check it out.
One last administrative item, then we could probably go into what we watched.
Is that what we've been doing, Chris? We've been going through the administrative items, huh?
Yeah, that's what we've been doing.
Yeah, let's get into the meat of the episode. Okay.
Anytime where we're like pretending we're friends, I'm going through administrative items. Rick, what did you watch since the last time we talked?
I watched a 6-part John Wayne Gacy documentary in honor of you, Chris.
Well, I appreciate that. Were you thinking, I'm going to do this for Chris?
Chris seems to like serial killers. There must be something about them.
I'll check
I'm
them
going to
out.
give it a try. I'm going to check this out.
And what were your thoughts? You loved it.
I did love it, and that sounds demented, but it was nostalgic. So first off, Jay Levine was kind of the center point, or the centerpiece interview subject for a lot of this, as the reporter reporting this. And so you'd see current Jay Levine, who's a reporter on Channel 7, local Channel 7 news, and he was there the first day that the coroner's office, the first night that they went to Gacy's house. And so you get to see 1978 Jay Levine talking to people and talking about it, and then you get to see present-day Jay Levine, and then all sorts of other, I'm trying to remember his name, Russ, somebody who was another Chicago reporter.
Russ Ewing. I was trying to, because I read that book. He wrote a book with, it was Tim Cahill. I just looked it up again. Yeah, because I read a bunch of Tim Cahill books, wrote stuff like outside, like, adventure books. I've never been into true crime, and yeah, that's the one true crime book I've ever read was, with Russ Ewing. I remember standing in line at Potbelly Sandwiches behind Russ Ewing many years late, like probably about early 2000s, maybe, something like that, because I think it's right around the corner from ABC Studios downtown in Chicago. But
what did he get?
Yeah.
I do not remember. I think it was probably something like, it wasn't healthy. It was like what I would have got, what I got was like Italian, something like, it was like that. It was like, he got what I got. But anyway, yeah, I read that book. It was terrifying because it was our childhood. It was like a scary thing. And reading the book is really scary because it goes into all the detail and how close, like when he finally got caught, he dumped one of the bodies over the bridge into the Des Plaines River, and it's just south of here. And when it was like, all this stuff is happening right around you.
Apparently he did a jailhouse interview right before he was executed with the FBI agent who came up with the term serial killer, and is that, I think he's the
Manhunter.
What is it? Yeah, in Manhunter. Yeah, he's kind of that. The character's kind of based on him. And he did an interview with Gacy, and Gacy's got this huge 1,000-page book with all the people who were killed, and he's going through and talking about how, this one, I accidentally killed this person and buried them, but I don't know how these other 30 people got into my basement. And, and it's kind of a strange interview, and the way he talks about it, where it's kind of like he's talking about committing some crimes, but then also trying to prove that he didn't. It's very strange stuff. But yeah, it's nostalgia. It's like, it's an important part of my childhood, I realized. It's like really a moment when your local news is just talking about this every day, and it's young men, and you're like, I would have been like 13 or 14, but still, it was, and he seemed to go after like more like 17, 18, 19, 20, right? But it was that idea where someone was just molesting and killing guys.
Was that the first serial killer you knew of, John Wayne Gacy? I think it was for me.
Yeah, I think so. And yeah, because it being so local, it was just constantly in the news, even more than it was on a national level, I think.
So you'd recommend this documentary? I should watch it, you think?
I think so. I mean, for you, it might be a lot of review.
I don't know much about Gacy, to be honest. I know more about Dahmer and Bundy.
It's really thorough. I mean, it starts from his time in Iowa and the stuff that happened there, and he was in jail, and there's footage of him. So he was a model prisoner in Iowa, and he was running the kitchen in this prison in Iowa, and they did a whole story on him and what they were cooking for Christmas at this prison. And so you see him in like 69, 70, on film, being interviewed, talking about stuff. It's fascinating. That's what's interesting about Jay Levine is he's being a Chicago reporter, and, he seems a little bit like a showboat, but he's also basically saying, how come he didn't get caught like sooner? Like, how did he get away with this and the whole political thing? So you've got somebody who's, understands the Chicago political machine, had reported on that, and then sees a guy who is, sort of deeply entrenched in the local level of Chicago politics or Cook County politics, getting away with, murdering 33 people. He's pretty adamant that there were some deeply flawed things going on and potential cover-ups.
I think it's privilege. I mean, that's how Dahmer got away with so much. There was one boy that police officers took back to Dahmer's apartment and gave him back. The cops gave the boy back to Dahmer, and that boy was then killed. And it was just like, this is a lover's quarrel. We've been partying. And the boy was, I think he was black, and Dahmer's a white guy, and the cops are white, and they're just like, okay, off you go.
That's the most disturbing part is there was a gay man who basically got into Gacy's car, got the crap beaten out of him, got himself out of the house, and then went to the police, and the police were like, meh, gay guys. The guy looked like his face had been pulverized, basically. And then he spent a month with his boyfriend hanging out in a car in the same place that he had gotten picked up, right, by Gacy, and found him and got the plate and went to the police and pressed charges, and got them to press charges and everything like that. And then, again, nothing happened. The police weren't going to deal with it. It wasn't even serious to them. It was just like, this is a lover's quarrel. And the guy looked like he had been pulverized. It was amazing. But I guess the same thing would have happened if it was a woman, right, had been beaten horribly in 1978 and gone and found a man who had done that.
Or it's like drug addicts and stuff. You always hear about all the things that people who've died from, what's his name?
Johnny Thunders.
Yeah, Johnny Thunders. Mm-hmm. He died in whatever. It was early, recently, in the early 1991 or something. But
yeah,
from heroin overdose or something. But it was it sounded like there was suspicion that he was basically killed, or it was like strychnine or something, like he was bumped off by his dealer or somebody. He got bad stuff and was just poisoned. It was never looked into because he's just this junkie, and
right.
It kind of came out because he's sort of famous, but he was probably murdered, and it's like.
So he would have died anyways, right? This is probably their thinking is like, well, what's the difference? Was he murdered, or he would have died next week anyways, right? So
we're all going to die anyway. I don't know if that's a real logical way to think. I mean, I was just talking about that at the beginning of the episode, and we all go to the same place, which according to Rick is the ground. I was trying to say maybe there's a Lake Alito's Pizza in the sky we could all go to, or something more spiritual, but Rick insists that it's the ground.
Could be an underground Litos, kind of like a basement restaurant.
I like that. Like the original Billy Goat.
Basement restaurants, though, are tough because the sewer issues and everything like that. It's not the healthiest place. And then I don't like the idea of being in the ground for eternity in a pizzeria. That sounds a little bit like I'm being punished for my life.
For your veganism?
Yeah.
I don't think it's totally nefarious, too. It's just workload, like Quincy, all that, and all these medical investigators, like first Quincy, but now there's tons of these shows, and it's all kind of a myth. I mean, all this technology exists, but they're not doing that for most cases, unless it's something really strange happens and there's, I don't know what, but mostly it's the most obvious cause. Sometimes there are these cases that other things happen, but there's just no way that they can investigate all this stuff. And there isn't a Quincy in every town doing that for every case.
So the medical examiner in Chicago, which I had forgotten about, it saw him and how he was an influence along with Noguchi in L.A., on the Quincy character.
Oh, yeah.
This sort of inequality leads into what I watched recently that I wanted to mention, which was the documentary Lorena. Rick, you talk often about how new documentary filmmakers are sort of manipulating the narrative, and we've seen a lot in the 90s and in the 2000s of documentary filmmakers basically taking their personal opinion and sort of driving the narrative using their personal opinion. So Lorena, I thought, was the next evolution of that, where it was a documentary filmmaker who was manipulating you as the viewer, but was doing it to make the point of the documentary in what I thought was a very objective way. It's I think a 4-episode documentary. The first episode makes it look like Lorena Bobbitt, was crazy, attacked her husband, and was just being completely irrational and deserved to go to jail. And the way you could tell as you watch it in sequence, he omitted a lot of facts from the first episode to lead you to that point. And I think the point of the documentary was we all were led in that direction. And the facts that he was presenting to lead you there was the way that the press was covering it, was the stories, was all the things that they could allow in court, not the things that they couldn't allow in court. I actually closed down that episode. My brother-in-law was like, you got to watch the whole thing. And I kind of finished that episode and was like, I don't know, this doesn't feel very good for her. Then you watch the second episode and they start to open the can of worms. Then you watch the third episode and it's clear that this woman was severely abused by this man. He deserved to go to jail. She did not. She deserved to get off, which she does. Then the fourth episode is what they did after that whole thing was over. And he went on to lie, cheat, steal, beat women. He almost killed a woman. The woman had to pretend she was dead to get him to stop beating her and just be a total fucking asshole. And then when they interview him, he is just lying to you the whole documentary. And he was lying to you in episode 1 and you were believing him. At the fourth one, you're like, okay, he's a total liar, but he's great at lying, which is the only thing he was good at. I thought it was a masterful documentary. And I also do feel like it was somewhat objectively presented. I think people with differing points of view will probably interpret the whole thing differently, but I did appreciate the way that the narrative was manipulated to just give you each point of view and make you take each point of view as the facts were presented. It was pretty fascinating. Have either of you seen it or heard of it at all?
I haven't, but yeah, that sounds... Initially, it would seem like something I would not want to watch, but the way you described it makes me want to watch it because I am starting to realize the long form documentary. It's good because exactly what you're talking about, especially if it's some sort of media event, which that was, right? Beside it being a crime or a criminal investigation, it was a media event. It's really difficult to, in 1 hour or 2 hours, to document that kind of meta thing that happened with the media and then actually talk about the reality and then start, commenting on, that documentary process, which kind of has, that's kind of what the media was supposed to be. And that's what we thought 24-hour news was, or, that new era of news that we kind of moved into. And then realizing, oh no, that was when news was starting to shift into entertainment.
Kansas City. Food-wise, a city famous for its barbecue, but that's about to change. My name is W. Dave Keith, host of the podcast Taco the Town, and I believe that Kansas City is one of the most underrated, underappreciated, up-and-coming taco towns in the USA. On Taco the Town, we will shine a light on all the amazing tacos Kansas City has to offer. Kansas City is a great taco town filled with a variety of untapped taco stylings and flavors, and on the Taco the Town podcast, we won't stop until we've tasted every taco in the town. No taco table will go unturned. Each episode, we review a new taco joint with a special guest. We share taco memories, discuss taco topics, and put tacos to the test. We check the latest stories in taco news, and no taco is off the table on Taco the Town. If you love tacos, like I do, you're gonna love Taco the Town. Available on iTunes, Stitcher, Podbean, and Google Play. That's Taco the Town.
Jim, what did you watch?
Oh, there's something I was watching. I've been meaning to bring up a few months ago. I don't know why. I just never got it. It was, especially over the winter and like lockdown was great to watch, was Alexi Sale's lockdown bike ride thing he do on YouTube. It's really funny. Well, it's not that funny. It's funny, but it's just it was totally great in the middle of winter. He just was he's still doing them, but only did a few, but he just has cameras on his bike and was just riding around London basically and just talking.
Is it desolate? Does he see people?
Oh yeah, there's people around. So it was like, it's when it's more recent. Well, it was, I think the first one, he started around maybe November or something. I don't know. So, I wasn't following exactly, but there's restrictions like when they were allowed to go out and basically, but it was, up and down. He'd just go out and ride around. That was just fun because you can ride your bike in London in the middle of winter. And you can kind of do that around here too, but not this past, February, when it was like there was 4 feet of snow on the ground, and it was fun to watch. On one of the episodes, Rick would appreciate, he starts talking about like the Situationists. Rick was into the Situationists, and he mentions that, and that's kind of actually he talks about it later on, like wandering, like in one of the more recent episodes, he talks about it like a bike version of, it's like the Situationist thing of just wandering around cities, and so that was the idea of the podcast too, the video channel. It's a YouTube channel, but is just kind of wandering around. He's not getting lost though, but he's just kind of wandering on a bike.
What are the Situationists?
It was kind of a French political art movement, and a lot of their ideas kind of worked its way into punk rock. There's a great book by Grail Marcus called Lipstick Traces, where he kind of connects the Situationist movement in France to the events of 1968 in Paris, and then how those influenced like Malcolm McLaren and Jamie Oliver, right? Some of it was about, just getting out of the everyday life. And so some of the things they would do, like getting lost was part of the journey, or using a map of Paris in London, right? So you'd try to get to the Eiffel Tower and you'd follow the map of Paris, but you'd be in London. So when it said, take a right on this street to get to the Eiffel Tower, you'd take a right on this street in London, and you'd wind up, somewhere where you would never go in London, right?
So that's the physical version of watching The Wizard of Oz to the dark side of the moon.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So like if you got to the Eiffel Tower and it was like Eiffel Tower pizza, you'd be like, holy shit, it's a Matrix. We're in the Matrix.
Yeah, and it's more just like, oh, holy crap, I'm, in this, I didn't know this existed. And actually, there's a lot of elements of that, and I think maybe, is that why I brought it up, was because of They Might Be Giants, is a lot of what's going on in They Might Be Giants is similar to their ideas, where it's just, you're kind of projecting, or reality is a projection, and then you're overlaying a different reality on top of it, or kind of getting out of your normal behaviors, your everyday life, to see the beauty and uniqueness in everyday life.
Alexei Sayle was saying, when he brought it up, the Situationist stuff, he said he was in Paris in 1968, and he was far too young. His parents let him go there. He was like, I don't know how old he was, but he was in the middle of the student riots and stuff. He was, just making parallels to it, but it's very controlled, or he knows where he's going. Right. But
he's a man in his 60s, right, riding around London on a bike. He's not going to...
Yeah, and the most recent one was he goes outside of London and he goes to like Milton Keynes, which is like a pre-planned city, like a 1960s. I'd heard of Milton Keynes, but I didn't really know. But it was like a 1960s development. It was just built out of scratch. He had a sort of fascination with it, and I think bought a house there early on. Well, in the 80s, late 80s or something, or lived there briefly. And so in this podcast, he went back, and it's not very enjoyable, or, well, it sounded like he didn't stay there very long anyways. It's like this kind of weird, it's not like a utopian thing, but it's kind of one of these pre-planned communities, that of course
brutalist
fail.
Architecture and
but
like
Brasilia is a big one, but places like that. But this it sounded like he enjoyed it when he lived there, but he liked the aesthetic of it or something. But anyways, he came back. Yeah, this is just the past month or something. He recorded a video of him riding around, and it's like the worst episode almost. It's like, it's not depressing, but it's just like, it's like it's not going the way he expected it, or it's not the same as it was in the 80s, and he's like kind of not depressed, but it's just like this isn't.
It's hard to understand why he loved it so much, maybe, or he can't see what he saw in it. Yeah,
but but it's still a good episode. It's funny, but they're not comedy podcasts. They're not. He's just kind of rambling. It's just this probably almost 70-year-old guy on a bike, kind of reminiscing. Especially in London, he's like always talking about, this has happened here and this and stuff. And it's a unique YouTube channel. I think it's called Alexei Sayle's Lockdown Bike Ride or something like that. But Alexei Sayle, he's got he does podcasts too. I think they're on, like, just audio podcasts. They're on the same YouTube channel. Actually, I haven't listened to any of those. I just watched the videos, the of the bike rides.
It's great. Well, we're coming up on our hour. Should I talk about our movie that we're going to watch?
Yeah.
It's up to you, boss man.
I like how it's really gotten to where I'm the boss of these podcasts. I mean, I'm just trying to get Rick to bed at a decent hour. That's my motivation. He needs his sleep.
Have I not complained that I'm like a 90-year-old man already. It's like I sleep for like 4 hours.
I woke up every 2 hours thinking about a manhole cover last night. That's how awful my sleep has become. Just kept waking up thinking about a manhole cover.
Like a specific one or just any?
A specific one, because we put a patio in the backyard, and we had to patio over a sewage pump, and we couldn't figure out what to do with the sewage pump because you have to have access to it, because if the thing breaks, I mean, that's no good. I came up with a brilliant idea of saying we should buy a manhole cover, put the manhole cover over it, and you could make it decorative. So we got one with a logo on it and everything. It's really cool. So anyway, it arrived yesterday, and I just kept waking up every 2 hours thinking about that manhole cover. Can't wait to see it in the patio.
Yeah, this totally reminds me of the show I watched about a guy who had lots of issues with the sewer lines and issues with his basement, strange odors. His wife, was like, you got to do something about that basement.
Was it a distinct smell in the basement?
Distinct smell when the heat would come on. Always there were problems. Lots of construction work digging in the backyard and the driveway and in the basement or in the crawl space.
Pouring cement like at 3 a.m.
Yeah, I'll bet you he'd wake up quite a bit, think about manhole covers and septic tanks and all that stuff. And I got it from, just a quick plug here, from manholecoversdirect.com. That is exactly where I got it from.
You had to be very careful on the internet. I don't know, just when you're doing a search for that stuff.
So the movie we're going to review is the 1980 John Cassavetes film, Gloria. There's an interesting hiccup with my selection of this film, which we will go into on the episode. So listen to us in a week for Gloria.
Lost and Found and Rewound is fully funded by Lost and Found and Rewound Foundation funds. Lost and Found and Rewound does not use crowdfunding because our listeners have better things to do with their funding. There's no need to post reviews of Lost and Found and Rewound because our listeners have more valuable things to do with their time. In all sincerity, thank you for listening to the show. We truly appreciate it.
Lotus Pod.